Welcome to another mount and weapon farm video, which shall serve as the logical continuation of the video from 2 weeks ago, where I have shown you how you can easily and quickly farm some very cool mounts. This time featuring the 7 birds and the mighty Firebird received from Extreme Trials in Heavensward. And as you may have guessed it from the title already, these can be soloed, and I farmed all of them with my own bloody hands in around about 8 to 10 hours. But this time it is definitely a good step forward when looking at the difficulty level and duration required, and I highly recommend to have leveled up a tank. Especially the Paladin and Warrior will work wonders, but also a Dark Knight can do it. First of all, exactly like the pony mounts on Realm Reborn, Heavensward Extreme Trials do drop whistles, that upon use will teach you how to summon a certain bird mount according to the boss you have found the whistle on. And my personal highlight about these mounts is how your character sits on them. It is totally different from other riding animations, and it looks cool for multiple reasons. If you really want to do this all by yourself, there's no other way than to take a tank into battle, except you're just going for 1 or 2 of these. But if you're not having a level 80 tank at your disposal, this whole step is much more straightforward when doing it with 2 or more people. But I guess if all of these people need the whistles and bird mounts, it could actually increase the required time of getting them for your whole party. Because I spent a whole morning, evening and some fractions of my sleep during nighttime, which isn't that bad for 8 mounts in total. When all of these preparations have been made, make sure to clear all normal or hard versions of the bosses to unlock this little boy, whose name is actually more complicated than clearing some of these fights. While Nidhogg and Thordan in their extreme difficulty can be unlocked by talking to the lady next to Yoshi-P, both in the Rising Stones in Mordona. Still, if you're doing these by yourself or with a group, most of them, except for instantly grinding them down with 8 people, you have to stick to some mechanics, so let me try to cover the most essential stuff you need to know, especially when looking at soloing them. Starting the grind with a very easy fellow, namely Ravana Extreme, by opening up the Duty Finder tab, navigate towards that little cogwheel in the upper left corner and check the box Undersized Party. When you have a well-equipped DPS job, something like item level 500 or more, farm Ravana with that job, or the one with the best bursting opportunities at your disposal. And just don't worry about mechanics too much here, just smash in your damage, some burst for the face when Ravana takes a good bunch more damage received, and don't stand in the fire. It is really easy and doesn't reflect the challenges to come in any way. After that, Bismarck Extreme takes the whole thing a little step further, but only that you have to take care not being knocked off the platform by any attack, especially Bismarck's Sharp Gust can take you down, so use your anti-knockback roll command. Other than that, the key here is to burst down the Sanua ads as quickly as possible, because when they get too close to each other, they are immune to incoming damage, so save all your powerful stuff for this phase and burst down the Green Dragon when they are still suffering from summoning sickness and their initial cast sequence. It is basically not that hard, and I tested this with multiple jobs, maybe just don't choose a healer or something quite lower than 430 item level. And while the completion time here basically took me less than 4 minutes per run, I needed to complete over 22 runs before I saw a whistle drop. So note that RNG is definitely a thing, and it can possibly take you much longer to get all your mounts, especially when you have bad luck on Zurvan or the other Warring Triad bosses. But before coming to those that I consider to be a bit more complicated, next up we got King Thordan in its extreme version, which basically is not difficult but chaotic, and there are 2 essential things to know here. First, burst down Sir Adelphil and Sir Janlenu, because they will combine their powers and become resistant to attacks. You can still kill the boss without running into enrage, but I highly recommend to smash them down as quickly as possible, because it consumes a good amount of time when spanking them with bolstered defenses. After the whole ad phase, which is not that difficult, other than dodging things, finding the safe spot on the left side of the sword and killing meteors in time. Just make sure to have some big defenses up for the Holy Shield Bash phase, because first Sir Sephirot will pierce you physically and your heart by recalling some hidden memories, and then the king himself will smash you with a very big hit. Using the warrior for this fight was my best choice because of all the self-heal and having a massive push to your HP pool for the Holy Shield Bash. But I guess all other tanks can clear it as well. I tested it with Dark Knight at least. Next up we got Nidhogg Extreme, that I basically cleared on my first blind run as a warrior, so I guess you should not run into any trouble as well. Due to the Act More mechanic, which turns out to be a massive wave of damage, being a paladin with good self-healing at its disposal will make the fight much easier. But whatever you do, try to dodge stuff, burst at the start, and remember that one ad attacks without enmity, so you can dodge its attacks by standing off angle or behind it. And yes, when these tethers are close to their detonation, just use defensives and you should be fine, which also applies to Akmorn later on. Okay, when you clear these bosses, take a deep breath for the fights to come, featured in the Warring Triad, which not only sounds like the biggest challenge, but it actually is, and conquering them took me a whole lot of time and theory crafting. But to spare you that time, I will try to summarize everything crucial and what you need to know for each of these bosses. But if you still cannot defeat them or feel to be far away from victory, check out mistags or other guides on YouTube to learn about all mechanics those bosses have to offer, especially on Sophia. And if you're a Dark Knight or Paladin, I would definitely recommend to start with Sophia Extreme. While she seems to be one of the toughest challenges at your first tries, when you understand and get used to her crucial mechanics, you will love this fight and it will become super easy to farm her in Consecution, especially as a Dark Knight. First of all, you have to know that falling off the platform is her deadliest weapon against a powerful level 80 character, so avoiding this is #1 priority. And when the fight is starting, her Thunder 2 ability is a cone attack that you can dodge by walking into her hitbox or a bit behind or beside her. Just always try to dodge as many mechanics as possible because a whole bunch of vulnerability stacks can easily lead to your demise. The next thing that happens about 2 times during the whole fight is her commanding the hat she hovers above to a random position. The hat then will use a knockback attack, which can easily be avoided by having an absorption shield running, which means as long as you're not receiving any damage from this attack, it won't knock back. But of course, running to the hat is also perfectly fine if you don't do this as a warrior or Dark Knight, using Shake It Off or TBN. After that, these adds will mimic her attacks, according to the attack Sophia is using while being tethered to certain adds. And here you will always stick with the lightning attack adds. May it be the Donut Thunder 3 or the Cone Thunder 2, where you stand inside the donut or behind the clone of her when she's using Execute. After that, she will summon some adds, just kill them in the order from caster to warrior to paladin, and make sure to not attack the paladin when he's using the deflect Ravana mechanic, and when the warrior uses his round cleave cast, just go behind him and avoid stepping into ice. For the paladin stacking buster, just smash in your big CDs. TBN is a real blessing here. Also, don't use too many cooldowns there, because these adds are not a big deal. After that is done, phase 2 will start and you immediately have to walk to the right side of the platform, because the platform will swing around from one side to the other and vice versa. Which leads us to the key mechanics, this swing, which will always repeat from time to time, but with indication of one side being heavier than the other. The first can be negated by placing the Quasar Meteor that will be put onto yourself on that side which you can see less tethers on. After that, the whole swing mechanic becomes super important because it leads to your immediate death when done wrong. But fear not, my friends, no math, no big brain is required, we will do it the cheesy way. So what you want to look for on this mechanic are these meteors. Blue meteors are much heavier than red ones, so in general you always want to be on that side where no blue meteors hit the scale outside of the arena. Which is simple. As soon as you see the tethers, check out the sides and check which side you will find blue tethers and meteors and directly move to the other side. And if at any point you're not sure or lack the confidence to make a decision, use your arm's length or other anti-knockback roll skills for that situation. You won't believe how often this has saved my ass from dying due to brain lags. Just remember, always stand on the opposite side of blue meteors, and you're absolutely safe, except there's only one blue meteor and 5 or more red ones, then I don't know it myself, just use arm's length in that case. Okay, last but not least, the tank buster or swap mechanic, indicated by Sophia casting something embraced by a very suspicious green mist. Use the Blackest Night now, because when the whole damage of this effect is being absorbed, you avoid receiving a thunder damage up debuff that otherwise would increase damage received significantly, and when playing this as a paladin or warrior, you should use your self-healing at these points. But if you have already become what you must, don't think about this mechanic at all once you're hitting TBN, before she hits you. After that, repeat the clone basics, stay away from blue meteors and Lalafell, and don't let the hat push you from the platform while using TBN appropriately. So much so good. The difficulty level of Zurvan Extreme heavily depends on the tanking job you have access to, as I failed a whole bunch of times and was not able to beat him as a Dark Knight before achieving victory with the Echo buff on 15%. Paladin on the other hand is the easiest choice here, but warriors could have a chance as well due to their self-healing potential. But really, if you have a Paladin, take it. The fight actually got boring at a certain point of repetition, and I simply tried to optimize damage by taking some risks, so you should easily be able to kill it as well. Nonetheless, there are 2 crucial mechanics you have to be aware of. First, everything's easy until the Broken Seal mechanic happens, because here you will get hit by all 8 meteors and receive 8 vulnerability stacks that cannot be avoided, and you will be taking much heavier hits after that happened. So from now on, basically all tank buster mechanics are very strong, and here are my tips to survive the next parts of the fight. First, don't use CDs on the normal wave cannon, because you will need them afterwards for turfing that deals a lot of damage. And of course the broken seal mechanic will happen more than once. And while you cannot receive more vulnerability stacks, the damage is earth shattering, so try to manage a good balance between MP gain and healing, where going the Goring Blade route is always stronger in DPS, but when urgent medication is needed, try to focus on reclaiming MP with your other combo. The final blow, and the reason why Paladin is the undisputedly best choice, is the second Demon's Claw mechanic, which also knocks you back, so try to position the boss that it doesn't push you into the wall, which applies to his first appearance already. Nonetheless, to survive the heavy damage of the boosted wave cannon inside of Demon Claw, save your hallowed ground until 80% of the cast bar has been completed, to save yourself from getting 120,000 plus hit, which can easily one-shot you when you lack sufficient self-healing potential, which is always the problem when doing this as a Dark Knight, while a warrior can make use of Holmgang here as well. After that, just tank and spank it and make sure to stay safe and healthy. Alright, last but not least, Sephirot Extreme. While lacking the brute force self-healing and mitigation requirements of Zurvan's boss design or the required preciseness that Sophia is demanding, Sephirot basically mixes both of these aspects, and you have to be precise on avoiding crucial mechanics while also being quite effective with using your defensive kit, while not taking your own damage output too lightly. Starting with some basic hits, the first mechanic will be the double punch, indicated by green orbs spawning, followed by the arrow marker. I guess you could possibly avoid the whole physical damage taken up debuff with the Blackest Night, but whatever you do, have some big defensive CDs up here, because otherwise this will one-shot you easily. After that, you have to deal a significant amount of damage to not let this happen a second time. In the adds phase, try to focus down the big buddy and use the time to regenerate possible cooldowns by playing around with the soft enrage timer here, and take a deep breath again. Coming to the last phase, all your practice from previous bosses and a good amount of focus is required. First, the spike mechanic will apply a damage down debuff that can be avoided by snapshotting the spike to the position you were standing when the flashlight appeared, so when that happened, just move to another spot afterwards. Then the most essential mechanic will happen that applies a debuff to yourself, either orange or green. Now you have to handle follow-up mechanics accordingly. With the orange debuff applied, always catch one of these towers to avoid vulnerability stacks, but upon having the green debuff, avoid standing in the towers completely. On the green debuff, the tower detonation will hit you like a truck, while under the orange debuff, the magical DAT attack appearing together with those green fields that need to be dodged will hit you like a truck. So use your cooldowns according to the debuff you get. And on these hand orb attacks, always go to the side that matches the color of your debuff to avoid damage completely. After that is secured, remember all the knockback mechanics with the blue circle markers. Don't step into them and don't let them kick you through green zones constantly while keeping some boss uptime still. As well as when Sephirot is crouching before the platform, he will knock you back from his position, so get close to him. After that, the Storm of Words and other adds will appear and you should kill the storm ASAP to avoid mortal damage from the next mechanic. Use adds to heal up with AoE skills as a warrior or Dark Knight, and note that another tower mechanic happens in the process, so try to catch one of them accordingly. Indicated by the arrow marker, now move into the cloud and avoid fatal damage like in a normal fight, and move on with sticking to all you learned. It is not far anymore, and once you get yourself a good routine, this boss is also not a big of a deal, especially as a Dark Knight. Alright, after you found all the whistles with hopefully good drop luck, you need to use the whistles and venture to Idleshire, where this young lad will ask you if you're familiar with Divine Lennas and send you to his boss, also found in Idleshire. After a short chat, Yoshi-P will send you to the Dravanian hinterlands to summon forth the mighty Firebird and round up your bird collection for this series. I hope this overview and guide can help you out in hunting down some more mounts by yourself, or when doing this in a group you can say with confidence to know each boss's crucial mechanics. But if you have some tanks at your disposal, I highly recommend to test it out with your own bloody hands, as some bosses are really a cool challenge and provided tons of fun for me finding out how to deal with them. Oh, and I almost forgot, of course they also drop some weapons, and while I do favor the self-crafted versions which are shiny, they're not too bad and could possibly fit well into certain glamour sets. So have a lot of fun in grinding down the Lennas of the legend and get the mighty Firebird on top of that. Or just grind down the easy but still cool Rose Lena from Ravana, which should not cost you any effort at all. Thank you for watching. I will keep you updated where other mounts may be found and you could possibly solo farm them. But until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep loving Final Fantasy.